In a small house on the outskirts, I am Heller, and I'm hatching an incredibly epic project. Before me are piles of pieces, and I'm scrutinizing every detail with all my meticulousness and dedication. Suddenly, my wife, Sarah, interrupted my train of thought. She wanted a goodbye kiss before leaving for her business trip. Before she left, Sarah insisted on having a cup of coffee that I made myself. Honestly, I didn't want my wife to go at all. 5 days. That's the longest we've been apart since we got married. We love each other deeply and have a wonderful life. With my meticulous, detail-oriented nature, no place is more suitable for me than a U.S. government intelligence agency. At the office, there's Bear, a genuine idol, but he always comes to me for favors. I work in the decryption and analysis sector. Every day I communicate with someone who calls himself the tenant, who specializes in providing me with sensitive information. That morning, the tenant sent me an extremely shocking document and instructed me to only open it on a personal computer, absolutely not on the work computer. Even though I might be considered the most seasoned analyst here, I still have my own dungeon, a place capable of top-tier decoding but completely isolated from the outside world. After decrypting the file, I was horrified to see orders signed by the government, authorizing attacks on multiple locations and people worldwide, then staging them as terrorist incidents. All documents bore the signature of one person, the agency's head honcho, Moore. Nevertheless, I managed to keep my composure. For now, I'll just take the rest of the day off and go home. But afterward, I tried calling my wife, and she didn't pick up, which was extremely strange because we had promised to always answer each other's calls. The next morning, the big boss Moore was waiting for me in the office. This was the first time he had deigned to come down here from the top floor, and everyone knew it was no good omen. Moore took me straight to the CA director, O'Brien, and I started to feel nervous. But the news I received was 1,000 times worse. Last night, there was an attack at the hotel where my wife was staying. Unfortunately, she was one of the fatalities. I hadn't even had time to process this devastating news. Carlos took me home. The entire street was now packed with journalists waiting to dig for more information. To me, they are no different from vultures ready to tear apart their pain. A 5-day business trip has now become a permanent separation from the one I love. However, I am not the type of person to sit around and wait for answers. The very next morning, I was at Moore's office, demanding to know everything they had. A dandy in a suit named Caleb, also an analyst, dared to tell me I should leave this job to the professionals. I menacingly reminded him that the deceased was my wife, and I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Thanks to that jab, I was given a few days of leave. Moore wanted to keep me away from the computers, but something told me it wasn't that simple. A few days later, Sarah's body was returned. Only 2 people died in the attack, and the circumstances of the incident made me extremely suspicious. In my wife's luggage, I found a gift, a sort of puzzle box that Sarah had intended to give me upon her return. After I had cried myself dry, I returned to my office and threw myself into my work. Something urged me that within the files the tenant had provided, I might find a clue or a sign of what had happened. In just a few hours, I'd analyzed the entire attack. It wasn't an attack, but an attempted robbery that turned into a gang fight. Sarah only got involved because she tried to save others using voice recognition. I have identified the perpetrators, a unit comprised of Russians and South Americans. However, the final name, the one who executed my wife in the middle of the street, remains unknown. Nevertheless, nothing will drive me more than finding the killer of my wife. I created an accurate 3D model of the street, using perspectives from all cameras, and gathered enough information about the subjects' faces. His name is Hortz, a mercenary wanted in a dozen countries, and he has a relative in London, specifically at a cafe she frequents every morning. In one night, I accomplished what Caleb couldn't in a week. Gretchen, Hortz's relative, is my most crucial lead right now, and if I want to catch her, we need to move fast. Instead, I'm being sent to therapy. When I was allowed back to work, I printed out all the documents the tenant had sent and went straight to Moore's office to confront him. I had enough evidence to send Moore and Caleb to prison. The deal is very simple. I want to personally kill those who murdered my wife, or else we'll all go down together. After making a strong declaration, I could barely stand. But now that I've started, I have to see it through. There's no turning back. The next morning, I got what I wanted. Moore had approved a crash course, led by Morpheus himself. No. Here he preferred to be called Henderson. While I was learning how to kill, Caleb was also getting to work, mobilizing a team to retrace my every step in the office. They needed to know where I hid the backups so they could destroy them, but they searched everywhere and found nothing. Moore lost patience and ordered Henderson to eliminate me. But when he arrived at my room, I had already disappeared. The next morning, I was in London and visited the very place where my wife had passed away. Without wasting time, I rented a room near the cafe that Gretchen frequented every day. I'm sure she's the link to Hortz. As soon as she left the apartment, I went to the door and looked up a lock-picking tutorial on YouTube. Once inside the apartment, I searched for clues or anything that could lead me to Hortz. In a drawer, I found a gun. I took it but received a signal that Gretchen was returning and prepared to ambush her. However, when it came time to pull the trigger, I didn't have the courage to do it, so I retreated. In the photos I took in the apartment, I found the name of a clinic, and when I visited its website, I saw one of Hortz's team members. With just a simple code, I shut down all the clinic's computers. Then, I disguised myself and went inside, luring Gretchen in front of a camera. Gretchen, who was allergic to pollen, saw a large amount of pollen blowing in through the vents. If she didn't answer the question quickly, she would die in a few minutes. As Gretchen began to suffocate, I, being weak of limb and soft of hand, had no chance of fighting back, and Gretchen escaped the clinic, running out into the street. I only managed to snatch her phone and flee, but now my face was on all the phones of the witnesses to the incident. After decrypting all the information from Gretchen's phone, I reached Marseille only to run into Henderson, and he didn't look friendly at all. Henderson has a kill order on me and he intends to carry it out, but I've also learned a few things, including how to make explosives to cause chaos. The explosion was big enough for Henderson to lose my trail, so for now, I'm safe. With the help of tenant, I arrived in Turkey. According to the plan, I will meet a contact here who will give me something important. Finally, I met the tenant, who turned out to be a woman with extraordinary file decryption talents, just like me. Together, we might have a chance to seek justice for Sarah, but first, we have to pose as clients who want to hire Hortz's group for a job. Back in the United States, O'Brien speaks to Moore about my case. He told her I was unstable and put me on indefinite leave. O'Brien threatened Moore, and everyone knew he liked shady deals and she wanted to put a stop to it. If he refused to walk the transparent path, with her, his end would be prison. As soon as she left the restaurant, her assistant showed her photos of Henderson pursuing me and said he was acting on Moore's orders, so she decided to act and sent someone she trusted. I returned to Spain, ready to pose as a client looking for a top-tier team. There, I identified Mishka's location, who seemed to be the weakest link and might reveal something. Even when my teammates warned that Henderson had arrived at the hotel, I decided to stick to the plan and approach Mishka while he was swimming in the pool. I didn't have much time, so I only asked him one question. Where is Hortz, or you die? As expected, Mishka told me to get lost, a serious mistake he would soon regret. Kate, the tenant's real name, accessed the service area camera and directed me down to the basement, but a few people were following me, including Henderson. When Henderson caught me, someone else appeared to protect me. That is the person O'Brien sent, and now they are in the middle of a fight to the death. I witnessed Henderson kill this person, but he was also injured. Feeling pity for him, I tried to help, but Kate ordered me to flee as Moore's men were approaching. Although we escaped the hotel, Caleb's team tracked us to our hiding place that night and sent units to eliminate us. Kate had a secret passage, and we escaped by going through houses from below and through alleys. When the unit reached the house, Kate's tracks had been wiped clean. However, a boat spotted us and opened fire. Seeing blood on the windshield, I knew Kate was injured, and I quickly grabbed the steering wheel. After driving at full speed, I managed to lose the agents, but Kate didn't survive due to her severe injuries, and I was forced to leave her in the car and run to escape. After witnessing the death of my wife and a longtime friend, I went into predator mode and located another member of the group. With a few decoy missiles, I lured him into a trap. If he let go of the hatch, he would explode into 100 pieces unless he revealed Hortz's location. Even though that guy confessed everything, he's one of the villains, and I never intended to let him live. Hortz is an extremely cautious man. His base is on a small fishing island, accessible only by boat, and he controls almost all the routes. Using the dead man's phone, I identified his associates were transporting a shipment straight to Hortz. Now I just need to be stealthy and I might find him. The only problem is I just ran into Bear, who's on a covert job and knows what I've been up to lately. Bear told me to end this and go home, but I couldn't do that anymore. That house no longer belonged to me. Sarah wasn't there anymore. In the end, Bear let me go. He might have faked amnesia, but as soon as I left, someone attacked me from behind. When I woke up, I had been brought onto a boat in the middle of the ocean, where Hortz was waiting. There, I learned that Hortz had always been working for Moore. They have been partners for many years, and he specializes in dirty work for the agency. Hortz told me all this because he was convinced I would not be able to leave this boat alive, and he was confident in his victory. Looking at me, Hortz knew I was no killer. He even offered me a loaded gun to kill him, but I seemed frozen at the opportunity. In the end, I just needed a moment to see the fear in Hortz's eyes before lowering my weapon. But just then, the ship began to malfunction, and they lost control. When Hortz demanded an explanation, I simply told him that we had hacked the ship and they were no longer in international waters, but were in an ambush that I myself had planned. Interpol boarded the train, arresting Hortz and all his henchmen. Back in the United States, O'Brien received files proving the corruption of Moore and all his associates, including Caleb, who was very confident until prison became his new reality. As for me, Henderson came to thank me for sending people to the laundromat. I had saved his life, and now he could teach me some new tricks if I wanted. The film ends with me completing the project I started from the beginning of the story. It's a small airplane that I assembled myself from scratch, a gift from my wife, who always believed in my potential. My story ends here. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching until the end of the video, and see you again.